Hello, and welcome to Season 2, Race 7 of my F1 24 My Team Career Mode with Rockstar Energy Racing, and we are here in Canada, Montreal specifically, for the Canadian Grand Prix, and it's a very mixed up grid. Um, George Russell on pole, Lando Norris second, Yuki Tsunoda with incredible effort in the V-Carb machine to get third. You can see here Gasly up there in sixth place, Alex Albon in eighth. Um, Piastri and Leclerc are outside the top 10. Um, yeah, it's a very, very jumbled up grid outside of, I guess, the cars in the back half of the field. Um, so there you go. Championship standings. We lead by 5 points over Lando Norris, 12 over Piastri. There's the constructor standings. And I should note that the race should be dry, so there shouldn't be any threat of rain on that front, thankfully. Perez gained some points on me, but when you get to that point, if you lose out to your rival, but you're still pretty close to winning, it doesn't really matter. So, yeah, I don't know what it was. I had the best power unit, but for some reason, I lost most of my time on the straights. I'm not sure if that was down to my setup. It could be down to my setup. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe that's something I should actually check on before I do a race. Before I go into qualifying, I should say. Um, drive for the race. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this minor chassis part that did not go through last time. So we'll get that taken care of. And, let's see, so we have aerodynamic, chassis, and powertrain, durability. So we have two majors on aerodynamics and durability, one minor on the chassis. So I think next one I'll do a powertrain, just so we can keep it, I guess, uniform and have all four have upgrades coming in. So we'll go with the fuel efficiency upgrade here. And, yeah, so we'll do that, and all four colors on the thing there, so that's nice. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's go straight into the Canadian Grand Prix from Montreal.
Here in Montreal, lights out is quickly approaching on this artificial island originally built for the World Fair in 1967. Now it's used for a World's Fair of a different kind, ever since Formula One first arrived here. We're back in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. If you want flat-out racing, you've come to the right place this weekend, as it's full throttle for 59% of this 2.7-mile circuit, peaking at around 210 miles per hour going into the final chicane. But that speed requires discipline, and there are more than a few close walls here just waiting to punish drivers with a heavy right foot. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position. Edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Tsunoda, Verstappen, Hamilton, Gasly, Sainz, Albon, Perez, Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri, Stroll, Leclerc, Golden Boy, Bottas, Magnussen, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Sargent, Joe, Theo Pourchaire, and Ollie Behrman. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. And alongside me for this afternoon's commentary, Naomi Schiff. Good afternoon, Gnomes. Now, you're the racing driver in this partnership, so tell us about this racing driver. Put us in their shoes. How are they going to be feeling?
It's a very special time for the drivers. It's almost like everything around you slows down and you become hyper-aware. So your nerves slightly go up, your adrenaline's going up. It's the perfect time to start focusing on your visualizations and preparing for the race. So you want to avoid distractions and really stay cool, calm, and focused.
The formation lap gets underway and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure that their car is ready for the battle once the lights go out. As the cars make their way back to the starting grid to form up and get ready for lights out, let's hope the race ahead today is a thrilling one that will go down as a memorable Grand Prix in the history books. DRS is being enabled this lap. We can use DRS when you're within 1 second of the car ahead and in the DRS zone. Watch out for understeer in the wake of the car ahead. Try to get past as quickly as you can. Push, push. No tyre concerns at the moment, just focus on the driving. Gap to your teammate behind, 7.8 seconds.
Brilliant. Nice move. Keep going. Okay, you're within 1 second of the car ahead. Get ready to use DRS for the overtake. Try to stay with them. They might make a mistake and we could still regain the position. gap to the car ahead is increasing by a few tenths per lap. Get your head down. The car behind's gaining on you by 5 tenths a lap. Okay, no issues with tyre wear for now. Keep taking care of them. Green flag. Yellow flag. Okay, so we're leading our teammate by 9.5 seconds. They're on old mediums. They're in 19th place. Your last lap time, 1:15.7. battery charge is high. Let's use that overtake button a bit more. Approaching the pit window now, and you're going to be on hards next time. Okay, clear. Gap to your teammate behind, 9.8 seconds. We're increasing our gap on the car behind by around a second a lap. Confirmed, we'll receive you at the end of this lap. Caution, caution. Okay, be aware there's an incident in the next part of the track. No overtaking through the yellow flags. Copy that, hards next time we box. Understood, stopping this lap. Copy that, hards next time we box.
And it looks like the pit crew are out in the lane and ready to perform their magic on the car. They're going to be aiming to achieve the fastest pit stop time possible.
Look after these tyres now. We want to finish the race on this compound. Gap to your teammate ahead, 6.5 seconds. They're on old mediums. They're currently 17th place. Time last lap, 1 minute 16.0. car behind you's just come in for the hard tyres. Car behind, running hard tyres. No need to worry about the tyre condition for now, everything's looking good. Right, Ollie's coming in for his stop. Okay, you've got P5, P5. Piastri's ahead of you. Okay, they're on old hard tyres. Okay, Sonoda's behind you. Okay, they're on fresh hards. Our gap to first place, 12.9 seconds. Pit strategy complete. See these tyres through to the end now. Okay, 18 laps to go. Okay, so gap to the car ahead, 8.2 seconds. You're running low on ERS. Reminder that you can play around with ERS modes in the MFD or lift sometimes and ease onto the brake pedal for some manual recharge. Okay, so we're leading our teammate by 13.7 seconds. Piastri is in the pits. you know, we're getting some strange readings from a couple of the sensors, so I don't think you need to be worried, just some bad data, so keep doing what you're doing. I'll let you know if we notice any genuine problems. Okay, be aware the car behind is catching you by 5/10 a lap, 5/10. Verstappen's just put up the fastest lap of the race so far. Tyre condition still looking good. Gap to your teammate behind, 17.1 seconds. Use your overtake button more. It's time to utilise some of this energy. Come on. Car behind's gaining on you by 5/10 a lap. Okay, we have a problem with ERS. We have a problem with the ERS. Okay, you're catching the car ahead, but remember, we need to get to the end of the race on these tyres. And gap to the car in front, 2.1 seconds. No tyre concerns at the moment, just focus on the driving. Dropping a second a lap to the car behind. 1 second. You've got a lead of 5 seconds over the car behind. work, we're in P4. It's Hamilton ahead. Okay, they're on old hard tyres. Gasly behind. Okay, they're on old hard tyres. Okay, so gap to the leader, 21.3 seconds. That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops. Let's go. Come on, just 3 laps to go. 3 laps. Here's some information on Tsunoda for you. Okay, they're slowing down. It seems like there's some kind of problem with their car. Final lap, push, push. Okay, gap ahead, 1.7 seconds. All right, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
Here's the checkered flag. Here's our winner. By George, he's done it. Russell wins.
And they led every single lap of the race. It was a light to flag victory, and that is total dominance.
And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everybody played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
And that was the Canadian Grand Prix. A very interesting race that really helps myself out on the Drivers' Championship. George Russell wins the race, really controlled it from start to finish. I think what it really was the fact that everyone except for the Red Bulls and the McLarens started on the hard tire. And because the hard tire didn't fire off as quickly as the medium tire, of course, Russell was able to skirt off into the distance, I should say, before I even got past Lando to take second. So ultimately, it was a poor strategy choice by McLaren and Red Bull, to be fair, but McLaren as well, as you know, it wouldn't have played out for them. Well, it could have ultimately gotten them a podium, but it took them out of the running right at the beginning, as George was able to just scamper up into the distance with no issue to win the race. It didn't work out for Lando anyway, because he had an engine failure and dropped out of the race. So he did not finish, along with Kevin Magnussen, who had an engine issue. And then it pretty much, because Tsunoda was still in third, fourth in that area, I was able to build a gap before the pit stop, and I maintained that gap even through the whole pit stop sequence, and then was eventually passed by both Max Verstappen, who was on the medium tire, did end up getting second, and Lewis Hamilton, so I got fourth. And yeah, that's pretty much how it played out. The other two drivers who were on the hard tire to start, Sergio Perez and Oscar Piastri, didn't really work out for them. Perez got 1 point in 10th. Piastri finished 13th. And I have to say, really unfortunate luck for Yuki Tsunoda. He was on his way to a really solid points finish. And as I actually check the standings here, he was en route to score some big points for the VCARB team. Because currently they have no points. They were sitting in ninth. Had Tsunoda, let's say Tsunoda finished behind me in fifth, he would have gotten 15 points, which would have put him, which would have put the whole team, I think, into seventh, because there were Alpine, I think Gasly was right behind, and he finished fifth. So if you bump him down, they would have only scored, they probably would only have like 12 points, I think. I think my math is right on that. Or no, they would have 13, I think. They would have 13 points, not 15. But yeah, VCAR would be sitting in 7th, if not for that Tsunoda engine issue. But, you know, the same issue that affected Magnussen probably affected Tsunoda, and happened at just the wrong time, and it resulted in him finishing 11th, so he got no points for VCAR, which is really unfortunate. But good results for Gasly, who finished 5th. Albon, who finished 6th, so good results for them. And obviously, yeah, take a look at constructors. Mercedes jumping a lot, getting closer to Red Bull. And then in the Drivers' Championship, that really opened things up for me. Not super opened up, but increased my gap. I went from being 5 points behind Lando to being 17 points ahead of Lando. And then you got Leclerc sitting in third, Piastri sitting in fourth. So it's actually very close from second to fourth. They're all separated by about 7 points. Verstappen, with that result, catching back up a little bit. He's in fifth. Russell and Hamilton, they've been further down in the running order this year. So this double podium really catapults them up a little bit. George, let's see, so he had 54. So he would have had 29 points coming into today, so he would have been sitting maybe just outside the top 10, and he catapults all the way up to 7th with that win. So, again, obviously a great result for George. Hamilton sits on 37 points. He gained a couple spots, and yeah, that's where things stand after the Canadian Grand Prix. And with that, I will win the rivalry over Sergio Perez.
That engine issue was unfortunate. We should consider investing more in chassis upgrades and swapping out engine components when they're on the last legs to reduce the chances of this cropping up in future races.
So there was an issue with the ERS, but it never came up in the race. I said I had an ERS issue, my engineer did, but I never had a loss of access to my ERS. So that was very, very strange, just to say the least. Let's go to... Okay.
Okay, we've had the new parts come through the fabrication process. We'll have them with us for the next Grand Prix.
Guess we'll go with the most recent winner.
Thanks for handling that.
So we got to deal with something in the durability that did not come through.
I know we were expecting some new developments to come through, but some of them have failed quality control. We'll need to tell the team what to redevelop via the R&D screen.
Get the engine upgrades sorted out. All right. And that is it for the Canadian Grand Prix, and I will see you next time for a sprint weekend at the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix.